wondering how I got into this mix. Mind playing tricks and
This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network, and I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about running for president. Just looking back at this election, the 2016 election season in the United States, it's been a complete joke. Not only do we have a situation where two of the most hated candidates ever are, heads of the major political parties, which the majority of Americans accept are completely controlled or a farce. I think even, more Americans would say that they're not sure if their vote actually counts, whether that means it's, ignored through some sort of legislative BS or if it's actually just changed digitally and hacked, things like that. But I think it's fair to say that people are not happy with the status quo, which is a beautiful thing that we as individuals trying to create a better world could use as an opportunity to take in a more positive direction, and a direction that involves empowering the individual, empowering the people, not putting the power back in the hands of the people themselves and the state. So that's the way I sort of assess the situation. But we have seen this insane election. We've also seen trends like libertarians for Trump, where so-called American libertarians say that they're supporting Trump because he's the least evil when it comes to foreign policy, or however rational they try to rationalize it. And I'm not going to get into that. And if you're one of those Trump supporters, then please bear with me and continue to watch this video, because I think you might find something of value. And if not, then continue to support somebody who's an authoritarian and tell yourself that means libertarian. But I'm going to keep moving forward and staying principled. But we've seen that. And now we have also the Libertarian Party. I did a video talking about how the Libertarian Party is nominating two former Republicans, one who just barely weeks ago, still held on to the title of Republican. So people that could hardly, convince me that they understand the, long traditional philosophy of libertarianism, anti-authoritarianism, anti-state, and individual, that they actually understand that on a philosophical level, and not merely just Republicans who are okay with cannabis, or as Gary Johnson tries to promote it, as socially liberal but fiscally conservative, this really easy caricature of what libertarians actually are. But we see these just insane ideas being put out there. But I think the most insane one that I've seen recently is by a good friend of mine, Adam Kokesh, who I talked directly about this. This isn't a hate video on Adam. Adam's a friend of mine. This is just definitely an area where we're going to disagree, and you'll probably hear us continue to disagree. But he wants to run for president in 2020. And I've known about this for a while. I interviewed him when he first got out of lockup in the summer of 2013, and talked to him then, and he said he was announcing he was going to run for president. Well, we get closer and closer, and Adam is putting out more memes and posts about, I'll be the last president you ever need, and the first thing I'm going to do is abolish the judicial branch and the legislative branch, and just dissolve the whole federal government. Ideas that for anarchists and individuals who want to do the most difficult work of building community, because community doesn't come easy. I think a lot of so-called voluntarists and anarchists intellectually don't realize how much, when you're ready to put your money where your mouth is, how much work it actually is to build a community that is free and not dependent on some external structure like the state. It takes work. It takes localization. It takes self-empowerment and community empowerment. So that's the direction I'm headed. But what Adam is proposing is to run for president in 2020, and if that doesn't work in 2020, to run again in 2024 and 2028 and 2032. This is what he said, until the idea of the federal government is just so weak. And I just want to point out, this isn't, again, not a focus on Adam himself, but the idea of running for president. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what he said and mainly focus on why I think running for president is aggression, and maybe even violation of the non-aggression principle. And I'd say definitely not in line with anarchist, anti-statist, or even voluntarist views at all. And it's definitely not agorist, or an agorist, which I think many people, including myself, learned about agorism through Adam Kokesh's work and others. And so it's just a weird thing to see now, his evolution towards wanting to run for president. So Adam says that he's going to do this, to help everyone, right? He can help reduce violence by reducing the state, which I agree with. Obviously I'm fighting to eliminate the state as much as possible and to empower myself and my local community. But there are people out there who want a state, and ultimately what I've realized is that the world is a big, vast place. The United States alone is hard to convince even 5 to 10% of the population that they can take care of themselves. People are too busy just trying to survive, or they're too fat and happy to want to work for themselves, and do the difficult work that it takes to take care of themselves in the absence of a state, or to be more involved in their lives. So they're okay with the government. And I'm saying, as backwards as it may sound to you, it is actually aggression against those individuals by forcing them to live under no government, by becoming president, which is just, you want to be the dictator in chief if you're running for president. There's no way about it. And if you say, well, elect me so I'll be the last president, or elect me because once I'm in office, I'll be able to protect you guys and get all of our needs in office. And I've heard this, and we've seen this in the history and every revolutionary movement where, they want to say they want to be the vanguard of the people. They want to basically become the state, in order to give us freedom. And it'll only last a certain amount of time. And I'm not saying that's what Adam Kokesh is doing himself, but I think it's a failed idea to think that you can seize the power and then somehow let's imagine even in this world that Adam was able to actually win, which obviously he won't, and he said he knows he won't. So the whole campaign is to run a losing campaign that will spread an idea, maybe, wake up a lot of people like some people felt Ron Paul did for them or Bernie Sanders did for them. But I think Adam has a lot smaller of following than those two individuals, and even if it does build, why not spend the money, because it'll cost $5 million plus at least to run a losing campaign, try to do all this fundraising, do all this political BS, when you could take that money and focus on homesteading projects, building the agoras and the free communities that we all believe are truly going to change things. And so that's one argument, is why not invest the money and time and energy into actually building things and getting a return. I always told people who are going to vote and engage in politics, especially on the presidential level, to grow a garden at the same time and see what you get a better response from. Your vote for a president, or growing food that you can then use and you can take the seeds and harvest and grow again. Which one produces more value? I think it's just a failed tactic, and also it goes completely against the ideas of voluntarism. The phrase "neither bullets nor ballots" means that voluntarists, those who want to see a voluntary society created where all interactions are free of coercion and they are voluntary and with consent, that implies lack of using the force of government, not the ballot box, not using violence, but using education rather, by spreading this message, and also building agorism being the strategy to building one of the new ways to live, creating a new marketplace that is devoid of the state's force and violence, not through political processes. So to me, it is completely an act of aggression, because anarchy can't be forced on other people. I believe that we're going to create a panarchistic world where there's going to be small autonomous communities of all types, and they could interlock and still be this United States structure, but without this federal overarching, state that holds everybody together. But you can't force that on individuals. So if people want a state and they choose to live under that state, as long as they don't use the military or that state's power to aggress on my free community, your free community, then we should be okay with that. And hopefully over time, the idea is that as they see how freely we are living, they will be converted to the ideas of self-ownership and non-aggression and freedom and anarchism. But you can't force that on them, You can't also say that government is wrong, so just make me the leader of that government and I'll abolish it. It's a promise to use the power in a positive way, and I think we've seen that go horribly wrong, and I don't trust any individual to be in that position. And I really feel like more people, especially in Adam's audience, voluntarist audience, should be aware of this. You're trying to enter into a status contest and say you're going to federally, dissolve the federal government, which goes against nearly everything I think that the voluntarist message is about. So running for president is an act of aggression. Forcing people to accept your view, whether that means carbon taxes, surveillance, more wars, free health care, free college tuition, or abolishing the federal government, those are all things that different groups of people would like the government to do that favor their causes. And anarchists, principled people typically say, hey, it's not right if we use the force of government to do that. If I want something done, I should find a way to do it without using stolen money, which is what taxation is. It's theft, and that's stolen money to redistribute for a program that I support. If you're against that on one side, you have to be against it in all ways, even if it means abolishing the federal government. Real change comes from within and from our local communities, not from voting for a president. Thanks for listening. Remember, you are beautiful, you are free. Peace.